The emotions are coming from the mind. So in a sense, the mind and the emotions are actually the same thing, right? They're not separate, but they manifest differently. The thought is, I don't like this. The emotion that gets triggered, well, that is dependent on me. The physical body is a chemistry beaker.
Hey everyone, welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm your host, Nitin Garg, and today I'm just with my co-host, Nick Palladino-King. And
Hey.
The two of us will be having a conversation around the different intelligence centers that are present within this vessel, this body, and how to relate to each one of them. And so we'll dive into that shortly. But Nick, you want to kick us off with a brief grounding, and then we'll get into the conversation?
Yeah, sounds good. So just to kind of set the tone, today we are going to look at the three different intelligence centers that Nitin just referred to, which is our head, our heart, and our guts. The sense of working with the mind, working with emotions, and working with knowing. So the meditation we'll do right now, let's say it'll be something that's going to help us get aligned. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We'll go over it right now. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay. All right. Go ahead and close your eyes wherever you are. And from here, you can take a big, deep inhale in through your nose, shoulders up to your ears. Nice, big, stress-relieving, open mouth exhale to relax, to release, and to arrive. I like to kind of shake my body out a little as I'm doing that too. And then from here, nothing to fix, nothing to do. Start to turn inward, start to bring your awareness in towards yourself. You can notice if there's any tension in your forehead, and your shoulders, and your jaw. If so, try to relax that, release that. And from here, you can begin to find a breath that feels right to you. So not too fast, not too slow, but just right. And what is the breath that's right for you in this moment, right here, right now? How much inhale do you need to fill yourself up, to breathe in, to fill? How much exhale do you need to release, to let go? And then what's that perfect tempo of inhale and exhale for you in this moment? Again, right here, right now. In through the nose, out through the nose, not too fast, not too slow, just right. If there's a sense of trying or doing, see if you can release that and relax and allow the breath that's right for you to find you. Allow yourself to find it. You're both looking for each other. You're looking to align, to become enmeshed. And then you'll know you've started to find the breath that's right for you, and you feel a sense of release or relief in your mind, in your body. A sense that everything in this moment is happening just as it should be, just as it's supposed to be. And take a moment to relax into that, to breathe into that, to feel into that. Nice. Then as you feel yourself start to soften, start to be a little more present, you can start to breathe in through your nose for a 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Even inhale. Even exhale, starting to create what's called one-to-one breathing so that your inhale count matches your exhale count. Again, 4 in, 4 out can work. If you want to expand your breath, maybe 10 in, 10 out. If you want to decrease, maybe 3 in, 3 out. finding that pace, that tempo that is right for you in this moment as well. And as you do that, you can start to smooth out your breath, almost as if you're ironing it out on an ironing board, removing any sputters, any edginess, any jaggedness. Smooth inhale. Smooth exhale. And if I were to listen to your breath, could you make it so I couldn't even tell the difference from your inhale and exhale, that they're getting so aligned, so similar? You're creating the same wave in breath and texture and sound. Okay, and as you do that, now take your breath from the base of your pelvic floor and start to breathe in and upward into the crown of your head. When you get to the crown of the head, pause for a slight moment, and exhale, crown of the head, down your spine, down back into your pelvic floor. Okay, so you're inhaling and exhale through center line now. Inhale, breathe up spine, up into crown of the head. Then exhale down from crown of the head to base of the spine. Okay, do about 5 rounds or 5 cycles there, moving up the spine through your belly, up through your heart, into your mind. And then moving from mind to heart to body. And you can start to see or sense or feel that all 3 of these are in perfect alignment with each other, stacked on top of each other and connected to each other, and maybe even feel where your breath passes through each one. Up and down, creating a sense of centeredness, balance, alignment in mind, in body, and spirit. Nice. And then finish the round you're on. When you're done with your next exhale, you can bring your chin to your chest to seal your practice. Take a moment and think about how you want to think or feel, or how you want to be today in your life. And if there's a intention you'd like to set, feel free to set that intention in your heart. With a big inhale in through your nose. And a nice big open mouth exhale. All right, when you're ready, you can flutter open your eyes and come back into the physical space around you.
All right. Thank you for that incredible grounding and centering.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, I actually, half of that was intuition. Half of that was techniques that I know. Half of that was feeling into the present moment, feeling into the theme, feeling into what we're going to talk about, and starting to weave a thread from the beginning of our conversation through the middle, through the end, creating alignment in the practices and what we're doing. And it's actually quite simple to do. And I'll go over some of the stuff of how you learn to access each of those centers.
I find that,
yeah, I feel more aligned.
Yeah, same. And, often we can be so just up in our thinking capacity, intelligence, way of being, that especially I found when you led us through breathing and visualizing the breath moving from the pelvic floor up through the spine into the head, the crown chakra, and then as we exhale, moving the breath, the energy from the crown all the way down into the pelvic floor. It takes practice. It takes getting used to seeing energy move in that way. It's widely known now that like the entirety of our spine is our brain, is
Hmm.
massive amounts of neurons, and uh, just biologically the way we're structured, that we have such massive areas of uh, neural activity throughout those spinal, that throughout the length of the spine, all the way from the head to the pelvic floor. And this way of moving energy from bottom to top and top to bottom is a great way to start to actually activate. Like right after doing this, I feel,
Hmm.
fully activated uh,
Yeah.
throughout. And so the way of speaking, the way of communicating, sensing, intuition, this is one of the ways we can gain greater access. I'm glad you really had us step into that and connect with it
Hmm.
as we're having this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, and we could even take that meditation further eventually, and then start to check in with each chakra, which is an energy center or a lens or a way of understanding the world, and each of those have their own texture, their own sense of feeling, their own emotions, um, and really starting to get to know ourselves, and learning how to live and make decisions from a full body experience of head to pelvic floor rather than just brain. And I think as I was walking us through the meditation, I was kind of thinking, okay, where do we start this conversation? And Nitin, you've already started to kind of hit on it. And we were actually talking to a guest on the previous episode, Rack, who was referring to how we're so in our minds, especially in the West. We've really learned to only operate from our minds, and we give it so much credit and so much power and so much authority. And it's kind of like the end all be all thing. We teach kids to do math and science. And as far as I know, the majority of schools are getting rid of physical education, right? They're not prioritizing health. They're not teaching people wellness and self-regulation. So our world has really become a world of the mind. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? The mind is one of our most powerful tools, and it's also limited. It has a function to think and to plan, but it's not all that we are. We're also feeling beings. We're sentient beings, and we miss a lot of that when we only live in our minds. And for me, when I was in Peru just a couple of weeks ago, one of the biggest takeaways, and this is kind of catalyst for this conversation, was that I'm nowhere near as present as I thought that I was. And there's a key word that I just said in there. I'm nowhere near as present as I thought.
Hmm.
Because when I'm in my mind, I'm not in present moment. I'm either in the past or the future. When I'm thinking, I'm not present. And during an ayahuasca experience that I had, the ayahuasca medicine kept showing me how unpresent I am, or the
Hmm.
lack of presence that there is in my mind, that my mind is constantly projecting into the future, judging people, their actions, thinking about helping others, and then also thinking about how to monetize the help of others. And that's
Hmm.
the tendency that my mind has learned through being a wellness entrepreneur. And ayahuasca kept whipping me back into present moment, almost like a Zen teacher with a stick. Every time my mind would wander off, it would go whoosh, and it was like, what the hell's going on? And it would wander off. Whoosh. I was like, okay, you want me to be present. You're showing me that I'm not here. I'm not living in the present moment. I'm constantly living in the future.
Hmm.
I don't think about the past very much. I'm constantly forward thinking. Well, the problem with that is, one, that's loaded with pictures, expectations, assumptions, right, of how life should be, rather than how it is, which has been blocking a lot of my own self fulfillment and happiness. And also, it's limiting the future realities in which I can live in, because my mind is predefining what's possible. And when it does that, it creates one doorway rather than having infinite doorways, which is what's accessible in the present moment, and which is what's not accessible when we are in our thinking mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's that sense of sometimes we're anchoring on we're not happy with the moment, or we're not attuned to the moment in the present, and there's a constant tendency to want something different,
Mm-hmm.
wanting life to be a certain way. And so we're constantly anchored on like, okay, we're trying to create this feeling or this magical moment or something at work, uh, and we in doing so unconsciously, we keep missing the present. One of the questions, that I've been having several of my clients work with is, what is keeping me from being happy in this moment? I'm constantly anchoring on happiness in the future. There's something, I'm going to get promoted, or I'm going to go on this vacation, or I'm going to go do X, Y, Z this weekend. And that's where my happiness is, that's when I will choose to be happy. And that's become a default for many folks and I catch myself doing this too. So, by no means have I perfected, yes. But bringing ourselves back to saying, okay, yeah, this moment is perfectly worthy of me being happy as well. And this moment may be difficult. Yeah. This moment may be, quote unquote, easy or smooth sailing. But even in those ups and downs, there's a way we can be present that doesn't ruin our emotional foundation of our experience of life.
So there's a quote that I've referenced many times that's on my whiteboard, which is to have fun and live with a sense of joy. And that quote is, to me, is what Nitin's talking about around no matter what's happening in the moment, can I have fun and live with a sense of joy, whether that be a good thing, a bad thing, or an indifferent thing. I could be at a funeral and still be feeling a massive sense of joy, of appreciation, of gratitude for the person, for the experiences, right? And I can also be feeling sad. And it's like to lean into those moments of life is happening right now. It's not happening later. It's not happening in the past. It's all here in this present moment. And another thing I've been working on is actually to feel the presence of the present moment. And if you pay attention, you can feel it. You not think it. The second you're thinking, you're not in feeling. But you can feel the texture of it. You can sense it. You can get to know it. And if you start to trust it, you can let it do its work. You can let it actually help you navigate and show you how to live your life. So the three things in terms of alignment, it's our head, our hearts, and our guts, right? And the newest thing I picked up, and it's one of these things of like, how did I miss it, is my head refers to how I think, my heart refers to how I feel, and my guts refer to, let's say, what I know or a sense of intuition. And it's like, wow. So I have access to all three of those things: my head, my heart, my guts, how I think, how I feel, and what I know is right. Can I start to slow down? Can I start to feel into what's going on in myself? That would be more around my emotions. Am I happy? Am I excited? Am I upset? Am I nervous? Am I anxious? And if I slow down, my heart center, my emotional body will start to tell me all those things. But again, as long as I'm in my mind, I'm not going to be in the feeling body, right? And then lastly, then there is going down into our guts, right? And we can start to feel, more rather know, what is right action. I was giving you the example offline, Nitin, of the gut feeling, the intuition is, I don't know why I'm going to take a left when I'm looking for a parking spot, but I know with a capital K that parking spot is open. I don't have any proof. I don't have any evidence, but I know it and I feel it in my bones. And what do? I learn to trust that over time and take the left. And what do I find? The parking spot's there. Now, that develops a sense of trust and relationship, right? Mm-hmm. The same with this sense of, there's a line that our mutual teacher, Jean Mazet, has. She says you need to date your mind. And I love that. It's fantastic. And dating is like, okay, at first, you need to meet someone. Then you get to know them, right? You get to know, and you go through these stages of this person's incredible. They're the perfect thing. They go through all the checklists. You have that friend, they meet someone, and it's 10 checklists that they were all looking for. Well, then after a while, a week, a month, 6 months, they actually start to get to know the person. And they get to know their tendencies. They get to know their habits. And they go, wow, this person isn't quite who I thought they were. This person has a lot more neuroses. This person is a lot more difficult than I realized. And that's when you're really getting to understand someone and know someone. Our mind is no different. It's the same thing. And eventually, then we get to loving our mind or loving the person, where you go, wow, my partner has all of these good qualities. They have all of these bad qualities that drive me crazy. And the whole of the person is what I love and who I love. So we're kind of moving from that being like obsessed with someone to like, oh my God, I'm knowing someone, I'm learning about them, to loving them. And working with our mind is the same way. How do I think? What are my tendencies? What are my fears, my doubts? What are my positive qualities? What are my negative
Yeah.
qualities? And then eventually it's like, wow, I don't really like that I do this habit. I don't really like that I cut people off or that I'm constantly impatient. Okay, can I start to work with that? And then emotionally, it's the same thing, starting to date, starting to get to know your heart. How does
So,
it
so
feel?
actually, if we
Yeah.
just touch on the mind for a second,
Yeah, please.
one of the things I've also realized is, we think that our mind is like many people, for a lot of us, it's like, oh, the mind, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way it is. This is how I was made. This is who I'm meant to be. And this is the way it's going to be for the rest of my life, right? There's a lot of the, well, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that same tendency. And I learned over time, and especially now that I, do mental fitness coaching work,
Mm-hmm.
wow, it's like, our minds are just these neural patterns that have been created. Yes, we're born with a certain amount of capability, but mostly as a result of our upbringing, uh, the household we're born into, the habits we acquired either through our parents or our social upbringing, the
Mm-hmm.
culture, everything that we're brought up in forms more or less the basis for our mind. And then as we experience different adverse conditions throughout our childhood and later adulthood, we form certain saboteurs and ways in which we try to survive and protect ourselves. So there's all these layers of the mind that have formed for some, one good reason or another to help protect us. But then at some point,
Absolutely.
they start to limit us. And I think if one thing folks take away from our conversation around the mind just is to recognize that we can shape our mind. We've been shaping our
Mm-hmm.
mind all our lives. And at this point, we can also choose to shape it going forward based on the qualities, the values that we would like to bring into our lives. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
fixed thing. It's not permanent. It's flexible. It evolves just like the rest of us.
It is, it's malleable, is
Yeah.
what it is. And the older we get, now the more challenging that can be, by the way. And that's why you'll meet someone who's older and they're stubborn and they're not willing to hear feedback. It's
Yeah.
because the grooves, right? And this is from yoga, they actually call them grooves of our minds, right? And you can think of it as a mountain of snow, which has runs, right? Ski runs that go down. Well, the more and more and more that you go down the same run or the same groove, the deeper that groove gets, right? So the groove is referring to our mind's patterning and thoughts. So every time I go to, let's say, anger as my first response, every time I do that, it creates a deeper groove, a
Right.
deeper pattern, right? Now, what we can learn through mindfulness, what we can learn through awareness is one, to see the groove. And that may be for the first time that you go, are you kidding me? I've been doing this my whole life, but it's the 2-inch rule. It's so close to our face that we can't see it. So you work with meditation, you work with a coach, you do psychedelics, and you go, wow, I didn't know I was doing that. Now you have awareness to start to see the habit.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean you're going to change, but it gives you the chance to, right? So when we talk about mindfulness, what it can be is almost like a new snow comes in and it covers the grooves. And now you have a mountain and you can go any direction that you want, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to go back to that same groove because that's your habit. You've got 10, 20, 30 plus years of training to go with anger, like I referenced. It's probably going to take time to start to choose a different route, a different path. But
Right.
that's the beauty of mindfulness and knowing your tendency and knowing your mind. What if I go right instead of left? What if I slow down instead of anger, right? What if I breathe into my heart instead of going into my mind? So this is how we create new grooves, new patterns. And what new grooves and new patterns do is they change our life. And I will say something that used to really freak me out about coaching is, and Nitin, I probably had this when I was coaching you years ago. It's like you and I have a conversation. It seems basic, I'll use the example of cleaning the coffee table, right, in your home.
Yeah.
So Nitin had a tendency, a habit that his home and especially his coffee table always had to be clean, right?
Yeah.
And
The kitchen
we
counter.
had the conversation. The kitchen counter, yes, the kitchen counter. It was controlling Nitin's life, right? Fair statement.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had the conversation around it, and now we all know it's never about the kitchen counter, it's never about the dishes, it's always about something deeper, but it was manifesting as the kitchen counter. Every time Nitin saw the counter messy, he had to clean it. Notice my language, he had to. There was no choice. It was responsive. So I said to Nitin, okay, it sounds like this is driving the bus of your life. It's controlling you. Do you want to change it? And that's the important question, because if he says no, then there's no new groove to make. There's no work to do. The second he says yes, it was like, okay, for the next week, you're not allowed to touch the table. You're not allowed to clean it. And you're looking at me like, oh boy. Right?
Yeah, that was fun.
A week later, because we're playing from a conscious lens, right? A week later, he comes back. He goes, Nick, I haven't cleaned the table. My wife actually cleaned it, And it's like, it's such a small thing, but we made a new groove. We gave Nitin an option to be differently, to live differently. And then as you start to practice it, things start to change. What used to freak me out is, how is this happening? How are people transforming in a week? How in a month or 3 months or 6 months am I talking to a different person?
Mm-hmm.
Like different vocabulary, different belief systems. They've got a new job. They left their terrible partner. They've lost 50 pounds. And it's like, shit, is this magic? Like, I don't understand. And I used to get really insecure about it. And as we're talking, they were able to identify a pattern in their mind and choose a new path forward, which changed their life. If you change the way you think, you change the way you live, you change your destiny. It's actually very, very simple. The same rules apply for dealing with our heart. The same rules apply for dealing with our guts. It's the same thing. Really, what we're getting at is awareness of our patterning, understanding how we think, how we feel, what we know, and then from there, starting to create different options or different choices of being and of living.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dive into the heart, because I think we can. I mean, even on the mind, we can spend so long. We could keep going.
Yes.
There's so much there. But yeah, I love the essence of what we've covered already. Is that, hey, a different path is possible, and as I become aware and I continually put some level of effort towards creating that new path, it starts to become a possibility, and over time, it becomes the dominant possibility. But it's a journey, and it takes time. Nick and I are both working through many of our own grooves, and we continue to do that. Reach out to one of us if there's something you're trying to work with, and it's a real pain. We're not going to be able to get to go into that today, but it's a journey, and it can be started, and the mind is malleable. Nick, how do we? What's a way in, for me, for the heart? Like, if I was to just start with the heart, one of the ways I started sensing into that was, what's the feel of a situation, rather than saying logically what makes sense, right? There's always pros and cons to weighing something out, some decision, anything, work or home related. And sometimes it's the day, like we're as simple as the weekend, to say like, okay, yeah, logically X, Y, or Z should happen. We have these invites, we think we want to go do X, Y, or Z. There's chores that are pending, but there's also the sense of like, hey, what feels right? Maybe there's time to, like, we actually want to empty out some of the schedule and just have a place to relax, because it feels like we need some time to take it easy. Or maybe there's the feel could be like, yeah, I haven't been to something expansive in a while, like something that maybe the ocean or the forest, going to going for a hike or something like that. So those are some of the ways I have been accessing sort of what
Hmm.
feels right, asking just that question, what feels right? I'm thinking,
Yep.
but now also what feels right.
I think that's the perfect way in. And however you get in to yourself is the perfect way. There's infinite ways: therapy, yoga, meditation, massage, having a glass of wine with a friend, holding your partner. There's infinite ways. So whatever works for you, that's what you do. Now you and I can offer ways in for ourselves, but really Nitin's using the word, we're getting from thinking to feeling, right?
Yeah.
So the way emotions work is you have a thought, and the thoughts usually tend to be of like a like or dislike or a belief system that we follow. So let's say Nitin brings up a conversation in this show that I don't like. Okay, well, that's my mind going, ooh, I don't like that. Okay. What'll happen then is my mind starts to make a judgment of like, oh, that comment was good or bad. Okay, so now I'm starting to deal in polarity. I'm starting to play in this realm of like a positive or negative aspect. Okay, well, I've got 3 seconds to catch that thought, 1001, 1002, 1003, before the amygdala fires down the enzymes, which then create the emotions. So the emotions are coming from the mind. So in a sense, the mind and the emotions are actually the same thing, right? They're not separate, but they
Hmm.
manifest differently. The thought is, I don't like this. The emotion that gets triggered, well, that is dependent on me. The physical body is a chemistry beaker. So let's say I don't like what Nitin says. Okay. That I don't catch it in time. I'm not mindful, whatever. It drips now down into the emotional body and it becomes a feeling. And the feeling may be I'm upset. The feeling may be that it's disgust. The feeling may be that I loved what he said.
Hmm.
The feeling may be that I was really excited by it. And now notice all the words I'm using, they're emotional words,
Hmm.
descriptors. Feeling, love, hate, upset, excited, nervous. Well, each of these emotions has their own chemical mix. It's like a cocktail, right? Let's say tequila, like a margarita. Okay, maybe that is the cocktail of happiness, right? Whatever. I'm just kind of making stuff up.
Yeah.
But you'll start to know at some point what are the chemical reactions in you that correspond to the emotional response. Okay. And we're going to tend to have tendencies in our emotional response. The person that always responds with being upset, right? That's what they're trained to do. The mind is going to that, so it creates the response of upset. So now that you know that, what you got to do is start to feel into the emotion. Okay, I find for me closing my eyes helps,
Hmm.
and touching my heart or turning inward and going, okay, how do I feel? Nitin's question. All right, today I'm feeling in this moment, I'm feeling a little excited. I'm feeling some constriction in my heart center. Almost like a nervousness is kind of in me today, kind of like I need to get shit done. That's kind of the feeling I'm having. Um, and I'm also feeling I've got a little bit of a headache. Okay, interesting. So those are the kind of the emotions going through me right now. A little excited, a little nervous, and also this sense of like let's be in a doing mode today. There's nothing
Hmm.
intrinsically wrong or right about emotions. Another key to emotions is they're waves, right? They're transient. They change moment to moment. When we have a different thought, that changes the emotion, right? If I have a coffee, that's going to change the chemistry. That might get me more anxious, right?
Right.
So from there, I can then start to decide, okay, how do I feel? I'm feeling a little anxious today. I'm feeling like I'm going to get shit done mode.
Yeah. Because basically,
Again, nothing
like
right or
we
wrong.
could amp up the feeling, right? So
Correct.
if anxiety is present and you take coffee,
Yep.
well, it's
Yep.
going to amp that up. And sometimes we're taking other stimulants and other
Mm-hmm.
emotional subtexts that
Exactly.
are already
And
present.
what's great about that is I get to choose that, by the way, once I have a sense of feeling. If I want to get more shit done and get more anxious and more fired up, then yeah, I'm going to have a double espresso and I'm going to sit down in my office for the next 3 hours and work on something. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally empowered choice. Now, inversely, if I'm going, I'm really not feeling excited about being nervous today. I'm not feeling anxious. I'm not enjoying feeling anxious. What can I do? I can start to meditate. I can do some breath work. I can go to a float spa, right? I can go for a walk. So then you start to get to interact with these things and you get to start to have power over them rather than them having power over you,
Yeah.
right? And then that I think starts to flow into the guts piece, right?
Yeah, and one of the things I've noticed just with the feelings bit, actually, just to add a few more points. By the way, if someone is looking to go really deep on this aspects and understanding emotions, there's a great book called How Are Emotions Made. Very deep, very technical, but we're covering the essence of that. So
Yes.
only if someone wants to go really deep. But one of the things I'll mention is, yeah, like just like we are sort of projecting, our minds is constantly projecting into the future. So
Yes.
the emotions are almost getting made even before we go into the experience because we're anticipating something. And
Yep.
noticing the anticipation is already sort of building in, like, okay, am I going to be nervous? Am I going to be relaxed? Am I going to be excited? Whatever pretext we take into a situation, well, guess what? That's how we're creating our emotional subtext of that situation. Similarly, I was mentioning to Nick this morning, I had a bit of a slow start, so I was getting into the groove of things. I noticed, okay, I'm feeling a little dull, feeling a little slow. Okay, I know I need to get in some exercise now for at least 10, 15 minutes, get the blood flowing, get the muscles firing and get the sweat glands opened up so that I change the way I feel and I'm ready for my day ahead and everything that is coming my way. So I have the right state of mind and energy balance to be with my day. I could also have just stayed with, man, I'm feeling dull and geez, this is just going to be a terrible day, or stay with that, or just take a cup of coffee. That's another choice of trying to amp up the energy. But I know a more sustainable way for me to create that good feeling and have the energy for my day is to get in, a decent amount of exercise. And frankly, even 10 minutes does wonders.
Change your life. Emotion stands for energy in motion.
Yeah.
You get to manipulate that. It's really important. So another piece here then to touch on around the emotional body and the mind. This is how we change our life. Okay. Well, if I go back into the past with my mind, okay, and I relive an experience that happened to me, let's say a trauma, let's say someone did something wrong to me, well, the tendency is I'm going to go around and I'm going to tell everyone about that, right? We've all done that. Well, guess what? Every time you go back into that emotion, every time you go back into that thought into the past, right? Your body doesn't do past and future. It only does present. So whatever I think about becomes my body's present moment experience, okay? So if I project into the past and I think about something that was done that was wrong to me, I get upset about it, it triggers that same emotion. So now I'm reliving the past in the present moment. You've heard the body keeps score. This is what it's doing. It's going, okay, someone wronged me yesterday. I'm going to tell Nitin about it today. It's going to trigger the exact same emotional response I had yesterday into this present moment. That's how I get stuck. That's how I continue to repeat the past in the present moment. And then what happens there is that's how my present moment begins to create my future, which gets me stuck in a loop. And that's how I'm still complaining about or holding on to a fear or a trauma or a pain from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So in order to change my present moment life and my future life, I've got to let go of the past. A really powerful way is to stop telling the fucking story. Stop gossiping, stop telling the story, stop complaining, and get present. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but accept it. And if you stop bringing it back into the present moment, then you can start to manipulate in a malleable way. How do I feel now? Okay. Now, the other incredible thing about this is it works in the other way. If I start to think into the future that something bad is going to happen, if I'm fearful, if I'm a worrier, then guess what? I'm going to start to bring in the people, places, and things that are going to manifest that experience because that's what my present moment physical body is doing. Now, the magic in that, I start to think forward into the future of how I want to be, how I want to think, how I want to live. Guess what starts to happen in the present moment? I start to get more confident. I start to get easier. I start to have less stress. I start to have more joy. And then now my present moment creates better future moments. You can, once you start to feel into this, you can start to manipulate either way, right? Now you're getting into shaping your destiny and getting out of karma, which is cause and effect, and getting into present moment, let's say, will or choice.
This is so important. I think it's subtle and it's so key.
Yes.
What you just highlighted, and we'll probably wrap up our podcast today with this insight that this sense of what I am thinking about my future and the story I'm creating about my future, right, which then creates the feelings around those. They essentially start to project what it is that we would like to create. You've often heard us talk about on this podcast, focusing on what we don't want versus what we do want. This is part of that framework. If we start projecting into the future the things that we do want and the feelings we would like associated with that, then our mind in the present moment goes, okay, that's the direction we're heading in. And as long as we're consistent, right, we're not changing our story every 1 hour, then the thoughts, the insights, sometimes that gut feeling that hits you, that takes you in a certain direction, they start to anchor in. They start to show up. And that's another way we're shaping our mind and feelings. They're kind of working together in as a conduit, as partners in creating what we would desire. So love what you just shared, Nick, because it is so key, and why certain people will start getting inspirational moments in the present about something in a way they would like to anchor their life, and why others don't.
And this is how we create a new groove. The language is there. She's in a new groove. That's exactly what we're doing, right? So before we finish, I want to just touch on the gut piece, right? And that is the sense of knowingness. That is building the trust of what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, and then turning that into the action of doing. I would say that is called right action. I started the meditation today with what's the breath that's right for you, right? That is the breath is the metaphor for understanding the awareness, the choice, and then the action. Okay, based off what I'm thinking, based off what I'm feeling, based off what I know, what is the action that I take that is right for me? And what you can do here is start to get into what's called a resounding yes, or a full body yes, or a resounding no, or a full body no, or a hell no. And I think if you can start to get to that place of, wow, this is what I want to do. I just felt it in my body. The hair on my arm just stood up as I'm talking. Am I excited? Is this a full body yes of head, heart, guts, and maybe even nuts for the guys out there? And that's what you go do. And then you trust it, right? And if it's not, if it's a resounding no, if it's like, nope, I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is, but something feels off. I don't trust this. Then don't do it. Okay. And then if you're not sure, slow down, take a breath, and turn inward. How am I thinking? How am I feeling? What am I knowing? Okay. Can I get to a resounding yes or no? Maybe not. Okay, then I'm going to be patient.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wait and not be impulsive. And then when I get to the hell yes or the hell no, then I act. And if you can start to do this, you will be living in much more empowerment, much more choice, much more right action. And my money's on much more happiness and joy.
Yeah, and there's I think this sense of knowing is something that we were talking earlier. Sometimes it becomes really clear when you're very settled, you're calm, and we've both experienced during deep meditations this sense of knowing or intuition is very present. Other times it's it's just a matter of having access or checking in, perhaps placing your hand on your gut. There's in business, we talk a lot about leading from the gut and sensing into the gut. What's the gut decision?
Yep, exactly. Good
There's
leaders,
also
good leaders lead from there.
Yeah, and when we don't have access, by the way, one shortcut is look at books, look at the teachers out there, those that are sharing the wisdom of having walked the path, whatever topic it may be in life, because sometimes that's the way to start to bring in the sense of what is the right thing to do in this particular situation, if I can't necessarily sense into that, if I feel a blockage. So that's another way to work around that at times.
Exactly. Well, cool. Nitin, thanks so much for the time. I know we got to jump, make this one
Yes.
short and sweet. I hope you found this valuable if you're listening. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe to the episode. And if you found it really helpful, be sure to share this with someone who you think this is going to help their life. We don't advertise anything on this show. We don't ask for anything. All we ask is that if you like it, you share
Yeah.
it, and you help us elevate the consciousness of the world one episode at a time.
Head, heart, and guts. Let's go.
Let's go.